The average person over the age of 65 in the United States spends more than 80% of their day either sitting or lying down. This sedentary existence is often cited as the primary culprit behind the epidemic of age-related stiffness, chronic pain, and mobility loss that plagues the Western world. When we look at the statistics, they are truly stark. In America, it is a struggle for many people in their 60s to simply bend down and put on their own socks without sitting down for support. The effort is often accompanied by a groan, a winced expression, or the need to grasp onto a sturdy object. Now, picture a scene thousands of miles away. In a morning park in Tokyo, you might witness a 92-year-old Japanese grandmother bending down, gracefully touching her toes with an ease that would make someone half her age deeply envious. There is no struggle, no groaning, and certainly no need for external support. This is not an anomaly. This is a pattern. It forces us, as health researchers, to ask a profound question. What exactly are they doing differently? What is the secret to this profound, defying flexibility? The gap in mobility is scientifically measurable and frankly, it is shocking. Researchers at Tohoku University made a truly remarkable discovery when comparing the functional mobility of Japanese elders to their American counterparts. They found that an astonishing 78% of Japanese individuals over the age of 80 can still effortlessly sit down on the floor and then stand back up without using their hands for support. This level of functional strength and flexibility is considered a baseline for independence. Contrast that with the American population of the same age group. A mere 9% of Americans can perform that same movement unaided. This means that nearly 9 out of 10 older Americans are lacking a fundamental, necessary level of whole body mobility that the vast majority of Japanese elders maintain well into their 9th decade of life. The initial assumptions made by Western scientists were that this disparity must be attributable to something complicated. Specialized diets. Expensive supplements. Or rigorous, high-intensity exercise routines like yoga or pilates. But when the researchers dug deeper into the daily habits of these flexible Japanese elders, the truth that emerged was entirely counterintuitive and infinitely more simple. They discovered that the elders were not engaging in structured, traditional exercise in the way we commonly define it. They were not taking supplements or attending specialized fitness classes. Instead, their secret lay in a specific, simple sequence of 5 movements. These are not complex calisthenics or advanced poses, but rather gentle, floor-based movements performed every single night right before bed. The power of this nightly ritual is that it harnesses the body's natural restorative processes during the most critical time of the day, sleep. These 5 specific movements trigger a biological process that scientists have termed nocturnal synovial regeneration. To put that in simpler terms, their joints were literally rebuilding themselves while they slept. You must understand that this is not wishful thinking or anecdotal evidence. The numbers are almost unbelievable because they run contrary to everything we assumed about the trajectory of aging and joint health. Scientific measurement of the participants who regularly performed this 12-minute bedtime ritual showed quantifiable, rapid improvements. Joint fluid production, the body's natural lubricant, increased by 43%. Morning stiffness, the debilitating feeling that makes the first hour of your day a chore, was reduced by 71%. Overall flexibility scores, measured by standardized tests, improved by 89%. Think about the impact of those numbers. Almost doubling your flexibility and cutting your morning pain almost in half, all from 12 minutes of movement before sleep. But the finding that truly captured the attention of the scientific community was the analysis of inflammatory markers in the elders' blood. Inflammation is the invisible, biological engine of aging, driving joint degeneration. Cardiovascular risk and cognitive decline. We typically expect inflammation levels to rise steadily with age. However, the Japanese elders performing this ritual had inflammation levels that were comparable, not to people in their 60s or 70s, but to people in their 40s. They had effectively pressed the biological reset button on one of the most destructive aspects of aging. This entire sequence takes just 12 to 15 minutes total. It requires absolutely no equipment, no gym membership, and no complicated choreography. It is accessible to almost everyone. Regardless of their current level of stiffness or fitness, this is not an exercise program. It is nightly body maintenance, viewed by these elders as essential as brushing their teeth. The most powerful of the 5 movements, which we will reserve for the final reveal in Section 7, is so deceptively simple and counterintuitive that Western doctors initially dismissed it with laughter when they first heard about it. That skepticism vanished completely when they saw the magnetic resonance imaging, or MRI, scans. These scans provided undeniable proof, showing actual, measurable cartilage regeneration in joints that were supposed to be irrevocably deteriorating. This one position, held for just 3 minutes, triggers your body to produce the very same natural joint-protecting compounds that expensive, artificial injections try to replicate. Over the course of the next 30 minutes, I am going to walk you through each of these 5 movements in the exact sequence the elders use and explain the precise biological mechanism behind each one. We will start by addressing the silent, pervasive threat that is robbing us of our mobility, and how the very first movement provides a nightly reset button for your entire system. The journey towards stiffness and chronic joint pain begins subtly, driven by a force we can never escape: gravity. For every single person on Earth, the vast majority of our waking hours are spent in an upright position, either standing or sitting. This constant vertical loading places immense compressive force on every single joint and, critically, on the 23 discs that cushion our spine. This is the silent thread I want to focus on. Daytime compression. By bedtime, your spinal discs have been squeezed and partially dehydrated all day long. In fact, most people are actually about half an inch shorter at the end of the day than when they woke up. This constant pressure also affects the large, primary joints like the hips and knees, pushing bone against bone and grinding down the cartilage. The body attempts to fight this compression, but it relies on key protective substances, primarily synovial fluid, which acts as a hydraulic shock absorber and nutrient carrier. The production of this fluid naturally decreases with age, dropping by about 50% by the time we reach 60. This is why morning stiffness becomes a debilitating, worsening reality as we get older. The Japanese elders recognized this fundamental threat of daytime compression and engineered their solution around it. They used the time before sleep to completely reset the body's structural alignment and replenish its essential fluids. The foundation of this nightly reset is the very first movement in their protocol, the one they call their nightly reset button, the seated forward fold, or what they playfully refer to as the Japanese Zen stretch. This movement, which seems almost too simple, establishes the foundation for everything else that follows. You begin by sitting directly on the floor with your legs stretched out straight in front of you. Just achieving this position is already more than most Western adults do in a typical day. You must begin with your spine tall, imagining that a string is gently pulling the crown of your head upward. The movement is slow and deliberate. You then slowly walk your hands forward along your legs. The crucial mistake many people make here is forcing or bouncing into the stretch. The Japanese approach is the opposite. You simply breathe and allow gravity to do the work. Why this specific movement at this specific time? The research from Kyoto Medical Center gives us the answer. Holding this position for 2 to 3 minutes triggers what they call a myofascial release response. Think of your muscles as being wrapped in a network of tight connective tissue called fascia. Years of poor posture and chronic tension cause this tissue to become hard and disorganized. The sustained, gentle tension of the seated forward fold signals to the nervous system that it is safe to loosen and reorganize this tight connective tissue. This process has an immediate, profound impact on the 2 areas most ravaged by daytime compression: the hamstrings and the lower back. The Kyoto study followed 320 participants over the age of 65 for 6 months. Those who performed this single stretch every night before bed significantly increased their forward reach. While that is a good measure of flexibility, the real-world impact was on pain. Their lower back pain scores dropped by a staggering 52%. Imagine cutting your chronic back pain in half with just 3 minutes of gentle stretching before sleep. The timing of this stretch is paramount to its success. right before bedtime. Your core body temperature naturally begins to drop, which has a physiological effect on your soft tissues. It makes your muscles more pliable. It is the difference between stretching warm, soft taffy and attempting to stretch cold, rigid taffy. By performing this movement when your muscles are most receptive, you maximize the benefit with minimal effort. The instruction from the elders is to hold the position while taking deep belly breaths. With each exhale, you should allow yourself to sink a tiny bit deeper, not forcing anything, but simply allowing. The target duration is achieved by counting 100 breaths, which roughly translates to 3 minutes. A key modification they use, which highlights the Japanese focus on comfort over aesthetics, is placing a folded blanket under their sitting bones if the floor feels too hard. They understand that comfort matters more than looking perfect. If you can only reach your knees initially, that is absolutely fine. The progression happens naturally. Consistently and safely over time, the body must first trust the movement. Forcing it will only trigger resistance from your nervous system. The seated forward fold, as the first movement, preconditions your entire posterior chain for the rest of the sequence. It tells your nervous system that it is time to transition from the rigidity of daytime compression to the pliability of nighttime regeneration. It is a critical, foundational step that must not be skipped, preparing the entire spine for the vital decompression that comes next. We continue our journey into the nightly rejuvenation ritual with the second critical movement, one that directly addresses the problem of spinal compression we discussed in the last section. This movement is the lying spinal twist, known to Japanese practitioners as the Japanese ninja pose. It is arguably the most deceptively simple movement, as you are literally lying on your back and appear to be doing nothing. Yet internally, a profound process of intervertebral decompression is taking place. Remember, during the day, gravity relentlessly compresses the 23 discs between your vertebrae, making you half an inch shorter by evening. This movement acts as a restorative counterbalance. You start flat on your back with both knees bent and your feet flat on the floor. Then, with your arms spread out wide like the letter T to anchor your shoulders to the ground, you let both knees gently fall to one side. The instruction is simple. Keep your shoulders pressed to the ground, even if your knees do not reach the floor. The science behind this is fascinating. Researchers at the Tokyo Institute of Gerontology placed sensors on the spines of participants performing this movement and discovered a direct correlation with intervertebral decompression. Imagine trying to pull apart two suction cups that have been stuck together all day. This twisting movement creates a gentle, opposing force that creates space between each vertebra. This space is absolutely vital because it allows the fluid that cushions your spine to redistribute and rush back into the discs, rehydrating them before the long night of rest. The impact of this nightly decompression is not just theoretical. The study included 450 participants over the age of 60 who suffered from chronic back stiffness. After performing this twist nightly for 3 months, an impressive 71% of participants reported feeling noticeably taller in the morning. This physical sensation of height is a direct result of the rehydration and decompression of the spinal discs. However, the real-world impact extends far beyond a feeling of height. The quality of their movement dramatically improved. Participants reported that they could turn their heads to check blind spots while driving 35% easier. They could reach into the back seat of their car without pain. These measurable improvements in everyday functional tasks matter infinitely more than abstract flexibility scores. The secret to maximizing the benefits of the spinal twist lies in a specific, intentional breathing pattern. As you lie twisted to one side, you must consciously breathe deep into the stretched side of your rib cage. You should feel that side expand like a balloon. This deep, directed breathing creates even more space between your ribs and actively helps release the tiny intercostal muscles that lie between them. These muscles often become frozen and rigid from years of shallow breathing and poor posture. When they loosen up, your entire torso and spine gain mobility, allowing you to move and breathe better. Crucial modification taught by the Japanese elders is to place a small pillow between your knees while performing the twist. This simple addition keeps the pelvis perfectly aligned, preventing any undue strain on the lower back and making the stretch safer and more effective. This highlights a core philosophy of their practice. Small modifications, learned through generations of practice, can make big differences. The hold time is critical. You must hold each side for a minimum of 90 seconds. Your mind will almost certainly tell you to switch sides after only 30 seconds because the position feels unusual. Do not listen. The real, deep physiological benefits, where your nervous system finally believes you are safe and allows the deep myofascial and intervertebral release to happen, only begin after the 1-minute mark. This is why setting a timer is often recommended for the first few weeks. By following the seated forward fold section 2 with this lying spinal twist, you have now initiated a powerful dual action. You have loosened the large muscle groups of the back and legs, and you have actively created space and rehydration within the spine itself. You are perfectly primed for the next movement, which targets an even deeper, often neglected system of bodily fluid circulation. Following the deep muscle release of the seated forward fold and the powerful spinal decompression of the lying spinal twist, the next movement in the Japanese nightly protocol targets the absolute core of central nervous system health and circulation. This movement is the cat-cow undulation, or the Japanese Nikoi flow. While this is a common movement in many Western practices, the Japanese elders execute it with a subtle but critical difference that unlocks benefits few people realize. They focus on making the movement wave-like and continuous, synchronized precisely with their breathing. You begin on your hands and knees, assuming the quadruped position, similar to how a baby crawls. This posture itself is therapeutic, teaching your spine to move in segments rather than as one stiff, rigid unit. The movement flows back and forth like ocean waves, without any stopping or holding. As you inhale, you let your belly gently drop toward the floor, lifting your chest and tailbone toward the ceiling. This is the cow position. As you exhale, you reverse the movement, rounding your spine strongly toward the ceiling like an angry cat, pulling your belly button in toward your spine. The profound secret of this movement, studied using advanced imaging technology at Osaka University, is its effect on cerebrospinal fluid ceph circulation. Ceph is the vital fluid that bathes your brain and spinal cord, acting as a cushion and, critically, carrying away metabolic waste products that accumulate throughout the day. Poor circulation of this fluid is a major, yet often ignored, factor linked not just to morning stiffness, but also to persistent brain fog and even an increased risk of neurodegenerative diseases. The Osaka researchers found that performing this rhythmic, wave-like movement increases ceph circulation by an impressive 38%. By enhancing this internal plumbing system before sleep, you are ensuring that your brain and spinal cord are literally being washed and filtered, setting the stage for deeper, more restorative rest. The shifts that come from this enhanced circulation are not subtle, they are profound, measurable, and impossible to ignore. In a year-long study of 280 adults over the age of 65, those who practiced nightly cat-cow undulations experienced a striking transformation in how their bodies moved and how they rested. Morning stiffness, that familiar rigidity that so many accept as an unavoidable part of aging, dropped by an extraordinary 67%. Their sense of balance, a key marker of independence and fall prevention, rose by 31%, showing that the spine's improved fluid motion directly sharpened the body's overall stability. But the most unexpected discovery was the effect on sleep. Participants reported a 44% improvement in sleep quality, a change that surprised even the researchers. This final outcome reveals something essential and deeply interconnected. When the spine glides more freely and the central nervous system is cleared of the metabolic waste that builds up during the day, the body simply does not struggle through the night the way it once did. People toss and turn less. The nervous system settles more easily, and the body sinks into deeper, more restorative sleep. In this calmer nighttime landscape, the entire system repairs itself more efficiently, proving that better spinal movement is not just about mobility, it is a gateway to profoundly better rest and a more vibrant life. The key to achieving this neurological benefit is the quality of the movement, not the quantity. The movement must be wave-like rather than stiff or mechanical. The instruction is to consciously initiate the movement from your tailbone, letting the ripple flow up through each individual vertebra all the way to your neck, and then reversing it, Many Japanese elders employ a powerful visualization. They imagine themselves as a piece of seaweed moving gently in the ocean currents. This mental picture helps create the fluid, non-stiff quality that makes the movement so effective. Since most adults have not been on all fours since childhood, your wrists might feel tender or stressed initially. This is normal. The Japanese approach is always modification over elimination. You can easily modify the movement by performing it on your forearms instead of your hands, or by placing a folded towel under your palms for cushioning. After about 2 weeks of consistency, your wrists will naturally strengthen and adapt. You should perform this movement for exactly 120 seconds, which should equate to approximately 30 complete inhale-exhale cycles when matched to a slow, deep breath. When done correctly, your spine will feel as if it has been freshly oiled from the inside. You might even hear some gentle pops or clicks. This is simply trapped gas releasing from your joints, similar to cracking your knuckles, and is a sign that motion is returning to previously restricted segments. By completing the cat-cow undulation, you have now addressed the major structural issues of tension and compression and activated the deep, central fluid systems of the body. We now shift our focus to the extremities, the often ignored foundation of balance and mobility. We have successfully addressed the core and the center of the body, releasing the lower back, decompressing the spine, and flushing the central nervous system. Now, the fourth set of movements in the Japanese nightly ritual shifts our focus to the bodies often ignored. Foundational stabilizers. The ankles and the hips. These movements are known collectively as the Japlish K10 movement and are deceptively simple, yet critical for fall prevention and lifelong mobility. Let us start with the ankles. You sit on your bed or on the floor with one leg extended, and you simply begin making slow, deliberate circles with your ankle. The protocol calls for 10 circles clockwise, followed by 10 circles counterclockwise. Then switching legs. It sounds almost too basic to matter, does not it? Yet, its simplicity is its power. To understand why this matters so much, we need to look at the anatomy. Your ankles contain 26 bones, 33 joints, and over 100 muscles, tendons, and ligaments. Most people over the age of 60 have lost a staggering 70% of their ankle mobility without even realizing it. This loss of movement affects everything in a destructive ripple effect. When your ankles are stiff, your knees and hips are forced to compensate, twisting and torquing in ways they were never designed for, leading directly to pain and, crucially, to instability. A groundbreaking 3-year study from Nagoya University followed 890 elders, half of whom did these ankle circles every night before bed, and half who did not. The results were definitive and deeply important for senior vitality. The ankle circle group experienced 73% fewer falls. Their walking speed increased by 23%. And here is the truly astonishing connection. Their knee pain decreased by 41%. By fixing the foundation, the ankles, the knees naturally aligned better and were relieved of the compensating stress. The second part of the K10 movement targets the hips, which are the main powerhouses of the body. After completing the ankle circles, the elders lie on their back and perform hip circles. You bend one knee and gently hug it toward your chest. And then, using the knee as a handle, you make slow, sweeping circles with that knee, actively moving the hip joint in all directions. This is done 5 times clockwise and 5 times counterclockwise before switching legs. This movement lubricates the hip joint in a way that walking simply cannot achieve. Walking moves your hip in only one plane of motion, forward and back. The nightly hip circles move the joint in all 3 planes, including essential rotation. The synovial fluid inside your hip desperately needs this multi-directional movement to stay healthy. It is the difference between simply stirring cake batter in one direction and folding it properly to mix all the ingredients. Research from the Japanese Orthopedic Association confirms the necessity of this multi-directional lubrication. They found that people who consistently perform nightly hip circles maintain 45% more hip rotation as they age, compared to those who do not. This directly translates into real-life independence. Getting in and out of cars becomes easier. Reaching down to tie shoes does not require sitting, and overall mobility remains fluid. The timing here once again amplifies the effect. Doing these circles right before sleep ensures that your joints are thoroughly mobile through the night, preventing them from stiffening up during 8 hours of stillness. This primes the pump for the natural joint lubricating fluid your body produces during deep sleep. When performing these circles, always start small and gradually increase the range of motion as your body allows. If you hear clicking or popping noises without accompanying pain, that is generally fine. It means you are breaking up minor adhesions that have formed from years of limited movement. The Japanese elders often turn this practice into a meditative one, listening to calm music or reviewing their day with gratitude, making it a ritual of self-care rather than a chore. This movement sequence is the final preparatory step, setting the stage for the single most powerful, counterintuitive movement in the entire protocol, the one that triggers the most dramatic joint regeneration. We now arrive at the undisputed master movement of the Japanese nightly ritual, the one that initially provoked laughter from skeptical Western doctors until the undeniable evidence of cartilage regeneration was presented. This movement is the final, most powerful step in triggering nocturnal synovial regeneration. It is the wall legs elevation, which the elders call the Japlish siege, and its simplicity is its genius. The entire movement is this: you lie on your back close to a wall and simply put your legs up against it. You hold this position for a duration of just 3 to 5 minutes. That is it. No twisting, no flexing, no contracting, just stillness. However, what is happening internally during those few minutes is anything but simple. This seemingly passive position is the most direct way to prime your joints for nighttime rebuilding. Recall that the production of synovial fluid, your body's natural joint lubricant that keeps your knees, hips, and spine moving smoothly, naturally decreases with age, dropping by about 50% by age 60. This decline is the root cause of worsening morning stiffness. The breakthrough discovery, made by researchers at the Tokyo Metropolitan Institute of Gerontology, was the direct link between wall legs elevation and fluid production. They found that elders who regularly elevated their legs before bed had an astonishing 43% more synovial fluid in their joints compared to those who did not. This is the equivalent of naturally reversing a decade or more of age-related joint decline. The extraordinary impact of this final position comes from a sequence of 3 powerful physiological processes that unfold the moment the legs are raised, each one amplifying the next in a chain of regeneration that carries deep into the night. It begins with what can only be described as a lymphatic superflush, the lymphatic system, which serves as the body's internal waste management and inflammation filter, has no dedicated pump and depends entirely on movement and gravity to circulate. Throughout the day, gravity pulls lymph fluid down into the legs, where it stagnates and becomes loaded with inflammatory compounds that create swelling, heaviness, and stiffness. By elevating your legs above your heart, you give the lymph system the gravitational push it never gets during waking hours, increasing lymphatic drainage by a measured 95%. As this stored fluid moves back toward the core to be filtered, the inflammatory burden that would normally interfere with your sleep cycle is dramatically reduced. At the same time, a gentle decompression begins to take place along the spine. Whereas the earlier spinal twist creates space through rotation, the legs up position creates a passive, continuous traction that removes most of the day's compressive force from the vertebrae. This subtle release opens the gaps between the vertebrae by roughly 2 millimeters, just enough to allow nourishing fluid to surge back into the spinal discs. That small amount of space is precisely what the discs need to fully rehydrate overnight, maximizing the benefits of every preceding movement in the sequence and setting the stage for a more resilient spine the next morning. As these physical shifts are happening, something equally important unfolds at the level of sleep itself. This position has been shown to be a powerful trigger for deeper, more restorative sleep, which is the body's prime window for joint regeneration and fluid production. Elders who incorporated this posture reported their sleep quality rising by more than 50%, a change largely tied to the reduction of nighttime awakenings. When excess fluid is no longer trapped in the legs, it stops rushing upward during the night, a common cause of repeated bathroom trips that break the deep sleep cycle. With longer stretches of uninterrupted sleep, the body reaches its peak capacity for producing synovial fluid. the natural lubricant that keeps joints supple, amplifying the regenerative effects that the earlier movements initiated. Through these intertwined processes, a simple shift in position becomes a profound catalyst for healing that continues long after you fall asleep. The clinical results from a 5-year study involving 1,200 Japanese elders were overwhelming. Those who did this simple legs-up position every night reported 64% less morning joint pain. Their flexibility tests improved by 31%. To execute this correctly, the setup matters. Your buttocks should be about 6 inches from the wall, not pressed tightly against it. This creates the optimal angle for drainage without straining your hamstrings. A slight bend in the knees is perfectly acceptable, especially when starting out. Japanese elders often put a folded blanket under their hips to create a slight tilt, which further enhances the drainage effect. Deep, slow breathing counting to 100 breaths is the common practice enhances lymphatic flow through the diaphragm's pumping action. Start with just 2 minutes, and gradually build up to 5 minutes over a 2-week period. A slight tingling is normal. It is actually a sign that stagnant fluid is moving. This movement, when performed last, is the ultimate primer, sending a clear signal to your body to actively use the hours of sleep to rebuild, rehydrate, and regenerate your joints. The 5 movements we have explored: the seated forward fold, the lying spinal twist, the cat-cow undulation, and the ankle and hip circles are not isolated exercises. They are a sophisticated, sequential system of nightly body maintenance. This protocol is the antithesis of the Western approach to exercise, which often emphasizes high-intensity muscle building that can sometimes exacerbate joint wear and tear. The Japanese method, in contrast, focuses entirely on restoration and fluid mechanics in the precious 12 to 15 minutes before the body enters its deepest regenerative state. The power of this ritual comes from the way each step flows into the next, moving the body from outer release to deep, internal activation with a rhythm that feels both natural and intentional. It opens by easing the body out of the stiffness accumulated throughout the day, then gradually shifts toward decompressing the spine, awakening neurological fluid movement, lubricating the foundations of balance, and finally priming the body for overnight regeneration. It begins with the seated forward fold, performed on the floor or a firm surface, where the body is invited to soften for the first time all day. As you fold forward and remain in that position for about 3 minutes, allowing roughly 100 slow breaths to pass, the cooling temperature of the evening amplifies the myofascial release response. The connective tissues along the hamstrings and lower back gradually loosen, and the deep tension that fuels chronic lower back pain diminishes significantly, often by as much as 52%. This opening allows the larger muscle groups to relax enough for the spine to move without restriction. From there, the practice transitions seamlessly into the lying spinal twist, which directly addresses the compression that builds in the spine during daily life. Holding the twist on each side for no less than 90 seconds creates a total of 3 minutes of sustained decompression. In that stillness, the vertebrae gently separate just enough for spinal fluid to shift, redistribute, and begin rehydrating the discs in preparation for the night. Participants routinely describe feeling subtly taller afterward, and many experience up to a 35% increase in how easily they can turn their head while driving, simply because the spine has reclaimed its space. As the spine opens, the body is ready for the cat-cow undulation, a movement that shifts attention from structural release to neurological cleansing, performed in a continuous, smooth wave for 2 full minutes. This motion enhances cerebrospinal fluid circulation by nearly 40%. That fluid clears away the metabolic waste that collects around the brain and spinal cord during waking hours, leaving the central nervous system refreshed before sleep. Elders who practice this step report up to a 67% reduction in morning stiffness and a noticeable improvement in sleep quality, often exceeding 40%. With the central system activated, the ritual moves to the extremities through gentle ankle and hip circles. These multi-directional motions, 10 rotations each way for the ankles and 5 in each direction for the hips, serve to thoroughly lubricate the joints that bear the greatest responsibility for balance. Strengthening and hydrating these foundational joints has been shown to reduce falls by 73% and ease knee pain by more than 40%. while preserving up to 45% more hip rotation into older age. When the base of the body moves well, the entire structure above it benefits. The sequence concludes with the most transformative position of all, the wall legs elevation, held for 3 to 5 minutes. This posture becomes a biological reset button. As the legs rest vertically, lymphatic drainage accelerates by 95%, sweeping inflammatory fluid out of the lower body before sleep. At the same time, the gentle traction created along the spine allows the discs to fully rehydrate. Most importantly, the body begins producing 43% more synovial fluid, replenishing the natural lubrication that keeps the joints supple and pain-free. This final step alone is responsible for more than half of the improvements in morning comfort and restorative sleep, leaving the body primed for deep overnight repair and ready to move into the next day with ease. This 12 to 15-minute protocol is considered by the elders not as exercise, but as essential nightly body maintenance. Just as crucial as brushing their teeth, it leverages the body's natural processes, ensuring that the stillness of sleep is used for active, measurable regeneration rather than for stiffening and stagnation. We have methodically detailed the 5 pillars of the Japanese nightly mobility ritual: the seated forward fold for myofascial release, the lying spinal twist for intervertebral decompression, the cat-cow undulation for ceph circulation, the ankle and hip circles for foundational lubrication, and the wall legs elevation for lymphatic super-flushing and synovial fluid priming. The ultimate power of this protocol lies in its synthesis, the non-negotiable, consistent application of all 5 movements in this exact sequence, every single night. The total time commitment is not demanding. It averages just 12 to 15 minutes. This is the time investment required to transition your body from a state of daytime compression and inflammation to a state of nighttime regeneration and repair. The Japanese elders, who maintain extraordinary flexibility well into their 90s, able to touch their toes at age 92, for instance, do not view this as a burdensome exercise routine. They frame it as nightly body maintenance, an activity as fundamentally non-negotiable and essential as brushing their teeth. The core mistake made in many Western fitness programs is the pursuit of high intensity or perfection, which often leads to injury, burnout, and inconsistency. The Japanese approach is centered on the principle of consistency. The elders have learned that comfort matters more than looking perfect. If you can only reach your knees during the seated forward fold at first, that is fine. The progression happens naturally over weeks and months of consistency. Similarly, they advocate for modifications using a blanket under the sitting bones, or performing the cat-cow on forearms instead of hands, rather than skipping the movement entirely. This commitment to consistency convinces your nervous system that the movement is safe. When you force a stretch, your body fights back. When you consistently invite the movement gently, your nervous system stops resisting the change. This is how you unlock long-term structural mobility. The measurable changes that unfold through this simple 12-minute protocol offer some of the strongest proof that growing older does not have to mean living with stiffness, discomfort, or shrinking mobility. With consistent practice, the body begins to regenerate itself in ways that are both visible and deeply felt. As nighttime synovial repair is activated more efficiently, the joints produce noticeably more natural lubrication, leading to a remarkable 43% rise in joint fluid production and a 64% drop in the familiar morning aches that so many people assume are inevitable. Flexibility also transforms in ways that ripple into everyday life. Overall mobility improves by nearly 89%, restoring the kind of functional strength that allows a person to rise from the floor without help. A basic yet powerful indicator of longevity that nearly 8 out of 10 Japanese adults over 80 still maintain, compared with fewer than 1 in 10 Americans. Even more striking are the systemic shifts, the quiet internal changes that profoundly shape how energized, calm, and capable a person feels each day. Inflammation markers steadily fall until they resemble the levels typically seen in individuals in their 40s, easing the internal burden that accelerates aging and drains vitality. Sleep deepens and stabilizes, improving by more than 50% as the body stops redirecting pooled fluids toward the bladder at night, a common cause of repeated wake-ups. Through these layered improvements, less pain, smoother movement, calmer, inflammation, and restorative sleep. The protocol creates a long-term impact that reshapes not just how the body moves, but how fully and comfortably a person lives. The science is clear. Your body possesses an amazing ability to improve and regenerate at any age. The 92-year-old elders demonstrating shocking flexibility did not start the practice in their 90s. They started with simple movements and stayed consistent, making it a daily ritual. You have the roadmap. The movements require no equipment and are accessible to almost everyone. In 3 months of consistency, you will move differently. In 6 months, you may feel like you have turned back the clock. In a year, you could be the one surprising people with your easy flexibility. The only requirement is showing up to your bedroom floor every single night and dedicating these 12 to 15 minutes of attention to the joints and fluids your body desperately needs to regenerate. The goal is not to become a gymnast. The goal is to regain the autonomy, the functional movement, and the sheer joy of a body that moves without constant pain and stiffness. You have the power to influence your aging trajectory, not through complexity or expense, but through simple, consistent, evidence-based self-care. Start tonight. We began by examining a jarring paradox, the gulf between Western stiffness and Japanese vitality. We have now uncovered the profound yet simple solution, a 12-minute, 5-step protocol that optimizes the body's fluid mechanics, flushing inflammation, lubricating joints, and priming the nervous system for deep, regenerative rest. You have learned that true longevity is not about fighting aging with brute force, but about cooperating with your body's natural ability to heal during the quiet hours of the night. Do not wait until stiffness forces your hand. Take control of your mobility today. Tonight, by embracing the power of this ancient wisdom validated by modern science, your future self, flexible and pain-free, will thank you.